Hey everyone, Jordan here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the monstrous HAVN HS 420. They emailed me asking if I wanted to check one out, and I've seen a lot of positive things about it online, so I thought we'd definitely get one in. It's available in two different colours, black and white. You can also get a horizontal traditional mount. You can also get a vertical mount, which is the one I've got here. Also includes a Gen 5 riser as well, so it's 50 series ready. So let me get it out of the box. It's a pretty hefty chunk, and I'll tell you all about it. So we've got an instruction manual, very thick. And we've also got a little box of tricks. Okay, so that was a mission. When I first got this, I actually thought it was a full system. It's that heavy. But here you go. Look at that. What a beast. Now, one of the, obviously, the main things you're going to see straight away is the uni sheet glass, just a single piece of glass that wraps around the whole thing. I'd hate to see what the yield on that is of making these. I expect it's very low. Let's have a look at this user guide, see what's included here. So, got a very thick manual telling you about every detail on the case, and then a little bit of information. Happy building, stay informed, blah blah blah. Accessory kit, so it looks like an extra slate for a hard drive or an SSD. Actually, that could be for a pump or res combo and stuff like that as well. We've also got some gloves. What? Never seen gloves included with the case. Some extra, look like it's cable management stuff. And then your usual screws and stuff like that. Would like to see these in a little box personally, especially with the kind of case of this price. But let me glove up. I've never done this for a case before. We're ready. So let's have a look around the case. Let's first start on the roof. If I can move this into position. Oh, it's so heavy. We have got a few bits going on. So we've got a pull tab first of all for the top panel. That's a very heavy piece of aluminium. I've got gloves on, I can't tell now. But there's also some filtration on the back of there, which is always a good sign. And then we have got our support for up to, you guessed it, 420mm of radiator in the top. You can of course do 360, 280 if you'd wish. And then you've also got some cable management channels as here. There's a little bit here recommended for the top fan cables to go through. Nice little touch. That's also removable, so you can put all your radiator and stuff AO on there, then bring it in after the fact. On the left hand side, we've also got some IO. So we've got two USB 3 ports type A. There's also USB 3.1 type C, and also a combi jack 3.5mm. That's a 4-pin TRRS. So of course, looking from the front, there's not too much to talk about because we've just got that big uni panel there. But we'll also take off these little peels so we can then get access to the glass. I've just taken out 4 screws at the very top so the glass can now come off, and it actually comes out at an angle. There we go. And releases. So we'll be very careful with this now. This is fairly thick glass as well. It feels about 4mm, so nice and premium as well. Then that reveals the internals of the case. Obviously makes it really nice and easy to work on stuff as well when it's in here. Now if you're wondering, inside that box we have this little piece here. That's an angled piece of glass. Now my thinking behind this is that we've got support here for 3 140mm fans. This is going to go behind here. Now if I hold that in place and also put the graphics card in, you can see that pretty much bypasses the graphics card there. Earlier on I mentioned the fan bracket. Now the original case has a flat bracket. They're going to be making that available soon, so should you want to add a flat fan bracket into this case with a vertical mount, you'll be able to do that very soon. Not sure if you're going to get the angled one for the original case. Some might like to do it the other way around, so you have the angled fans but with a traditional mounted graphics card. Maybe something that we'll see in the future though. So other things in the case, we have got the support like I mentioned for the additional fans at the back. There's 120mm at the top and the bottom. At the top we've got some grommets. These are very soft as well. The ones on the right hand side remind me of a bass. You can just play them like that. But obviously you can bring your cables and pass them through there. Looks like you can adjust the kind of tension on those as well by bringing these sliders up and down, so you make them a bit stiffer if you need to. Taking out the storage bays on the right hand side, there's a couple of screws to remove those. These can take 2 2.5-inch drives, or you can remove the middle section to then do a 3.5-inch drive. You've got support there for 4 of those, so that's a total of 8 2.5-inch drives or 4 3.5-inch. It's quite tricky to get out, but then that reveals on the right hand side more support for another 340mm fan, so you could do a 420 on that side if you'd prefer. Bit of personal preference. Some people like to intake from the back with a dual chamber style case, unlike using the fans at the bottom. Going up to the vertical riser, like I mentioned, this is a Gen 5 one, so the fastest we've currently got on the market. There's a couple of screws on the left hand side that you can use to then adjust the depth of the graphics card, and that does support up to 4 slots thickness by default. Haven't seen any cards thicker than that. The Noctua 4080 Super springs to mind. That's very thick, but I'm sure you'll be fine with any card like that, as you have got plenty of space between the glass anyway. If I go down a little bit further on the case, we have got a dust filter at the bottom here that just pulls out. So nice fresh filter there for the 140mm fans in the bottom there. Just pops back in like so. In terms of the maximum support here, we have got 185mm of clearance for your CPU cooler and up to 470mm of length for any graphics card. Nothing that long on the market at the moment, so you should be fine even with the latest 50 series. So on the back of the case, of course, we've got our rear I/O from our motherboard, also the I/O from our graphics card, obviously in the vertical orientation. There's the support for the 140mm fan, just screw from the other side there. Further down, we've got support for the other 140mm fan. That seems to have a cover on it. I'm not sure how you get that one out, we'll find out. And then on the left hand side, we have got our power supply mount, and that will take a maximum of a 220mm power supply. So taking off the back panel, again, this is filtered, one big old piece of filtration on the back for any fresh air being brought in by the sides, or even your power supply, for example, that's all filtered. So we've got a lot of things going on here. So we've got our cages, like I mentioned, for the 420mm support. That can also be removed out, so you can put all of your radiators and fans and things on and bring it in after, like we saw on the top of the case. Cable wise, we've got a front panel connections here. We've got HD audio. Front panels all on one block. We'd love to see that. USB type A connector, type C, and then our HD audio. There's also nice cable channels as well, perfect for going up to your 8-pin EPS connectors at the top. Lots of Velcro cable tie points there as well. On the right hand side, we have got a nice little fan controller. It's powered by SATA, and then it's also got a 4-pin for PWM control. Then that can take up to 6 4-pin headers. We've then got another one down at the bottom here again, so the same principle, can take up to 6 4-pin headers. That the white one was fan 1, again powered by SATA with a 4-pin for PWM. Do love to see that. Lots of hubs and stuff like that. Makes life a lot easier in a case like this. If I just tilt this up, you can see where the cables come through at the bottom here. We have got, again, those like rubbery parts, like bass strings, for example. So you can put your cables up through there. Perfect for your vertical mounted graphics card. You see also we've got here a storage box. If you wanted to use one of these on the back, you can do. Just slide that into place like so. Then that screws in there. So if you don't want any cables visible, maybe you've used all of the space here for fans, you can just reroute one to the back, which I think is pretty nifty. So that was a look around the case. Obviously I now need to get my test system in it to tell you about the thermal performance and then my build experience. But first impressions are very good. It's obviously built like a tank, very well thought out. I love the fact that you can move the storage to the back. That's a really nice little touch, especially as most people use these for either fans on this side or for rads, especially if we're going to go for a custom loop. But yeah, I'll get my test system in it now, do some thermal testing. I'm going to have 2 fans on this side, then one as an exhaust for a bit more of a traditional method. But like I said, we will fill this thing with fans when we do a build with it very soon. So yeah, I'll be back with you in a few seconds. It'll be a couple of hours for me, but I can tell you about my build experience and then give you my overall thoughts. So on to the conclusion for the HAVN HS 420. First of all, I've put my test system in this. Not what you'd realistically use, as obviously there's a lot of wasted space. I think this is screaming for a custom loop. If that's something that you might like to see and there's enough interest, then do let me know. And we could look at doing that. I have, however, got a AIO build plan for this after this video. I've also got some very nice hardware for that, plus a lot of fans. So get subscribed and ding the bell so you don't miss when that goes live. Now, speaking of fans, I really love the fan mounts on this. They're a plate that supports 120mm. If you remove that, they can then support 140mm fans. It's simple but really effective. It also cleans up the look of the fans over the standard mounts or mesh that we usually see. So let's cover the thermal testing and we'll get on to the pros and cons. I tested this with the usual 5800X3D test system. As you can see, with 3 Corsair fans in a traditional dual chamber style to keep it fair to other cases. In the situation where a case doesn't include fans like this, I do have 3 Corsair 120mm fans. These are from the Corsair 4000D, all set to 1600 RPM as well to reduce variables, leaving the rest down to the case. So in my usual test, the HS 420 came out in the top 4/5 of the cases that I've tested, and it's also the coolest dual chamber. So a great result, but to be fair, there's a lot of cases there which are within 0.2 degrees of each other. And also for those that are wondering, I tested the GPU, which is the 3080, running it through loops of 3D Mark Time Spy, and that gave me a high result on the vertical mount of 74.8, resulting in a 56.4 delta after removing the ambient. Again, another good result. Now the build experience with this case, as you couldn't expect, has been great. Obviously very well thought out. You've also got a massive amount of space, which makes working in it a lot easier anyway. The cable routing on the back of the case is great. I used one of these sleds to put my Corsair controller in from the 4000D for the fans, but it's also a great place if you've got a magnetic hub for your lighting or fans, or even like a 3M backed one, for example, good place to stick that. Now, if you do use one of the storage sleds like I did in its place, you will need to plan your cable management a little bit more, because that removes a big area where you can put a lot of the bulk of the cables. If you don't do that, it means the side panel just won't catch at the bottom, so you won't get it on. Or if you do, it'll just make it look like there's a bit of a bulge in the case, which obviously isn't to everyone's appeal. Now, another thing about the back panel, as it's all perforated, you can see quite easily through this. I've got it off at the moment to show you, so just something to bear in mind, and make sure you use the channeling as much as you can to keep them out of sight. The grommets they've included, again, very different to what we generally see, but I really do like those. The slidable clips also very good as well, because otherwise the thicker cables like the 24 pin can make them bow out quite a lot, so the little sliders they've got on there just help keep them nice and tight. I'm not sure if they may get looser over time though. The jury is currently out on that one. Now, on the right hand side of the case where I mentioned there's support for drives or fans, something that I forgot to mention in the unboxing part is that you can actually mount a monitor here instead, because you have got VESA 100x100 mounting. So you've got loads of different options there. It maybe might look quite cool if you were to have a fan monitor fan, like kind of sandwiched between two fans, might look quite cool, especially if it's a kind of narrow but wider one. Just an idea. Now, back to the bottom fan mount at the front of the case here. As I mentioned in the unboxing, I expect that was going to bypass the GPU, but it's actually designed to blow air to the GPU instead. I'll put the flow picture on the screen for you now to see how it's going to work in practice. HAVN have designed it that way so it keeps the cooler front of the GPU and then the hotter back apart. Now, that's only going to be applicable if you're using the vertical option of this case. As I mentioned, the horizontal version just has a flat fan mount. You can take the vertical mount out of this case though, for those that are wondering, but I can't see many people doing that given you're paying a chunk for the riser and also the mount that's included. That adds an additional £69 to the price. But I think that's fairly reasonable given that Gen 5 risers are new to the market and currently really expensive. The cheapest one that I could find was £70 at the time of filming. Some other little things, it's great to have USB-C and 2 Type A's on the top of the case. The placement might not be the best for some, and also some people might like to see a separate headphone and microphone jack. Like I mentioned in the unboxing, I'd also like to see the screws coming in a little compartment box, especially with a case at this price point. And that's the last thing to talk about. At the time of filming, this case is £199 for the horizontal version, or £269 for the vertical mount, which is what I have here. So yes, an expensive case, no doubt about it, but if you're going to build a high-end system, possibly custom loop, this is a case that I'd easily recommend, especially if you value ease of use, build quality, and also craftsmanship. Now, word of warning, once you've got a system in, it's very heavy. Even with the basic test system in this, I struggled to get it onto the desk. It's built like an absolute tank, and I think the curved piece of glass is a stunning addition to the case. It really adds the icing on top of the cake. So I think that's all I've got for this one. If there's anything else that you'd like to know that I haven't covered, please leave a comment and I'll go back to you as soon as possible. Links for this will be in the description box below if you want to pick one up. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please get subscribed and ding the bell so you don't miss the full build that's coming up very soon. Thank you to HAVN for sending this out for me to look at, and I'll see you all in the next one.